So, one thing that I love is that when you heard the title, everyone looked at me and shimmied because they knew. You know me well, and that means a lot. For those of you that don't, I don't make assumptions. There was a song in the 90s, the best era of music, in my opinion. Now, remember, I wasn't born till 79, so I really don't know about prior eras. I've heard those 60s were something, but I was not yet here. So the 90s is the best I can offer. But you may have heard the song. The chorus was a black woman's voice looped, proclaiming with clarity and victory. And my sinuses are draining. I ain't gonna do it to you today. I might. I know you always encourage. But it goes along, and she's like, "I've got the power," over and over and over again, and it really gets to you. I can't do it. No. I should have had them play it today. Maybe we'll mix it in over the next week. I'll definitely send you the link, and the Flaming Tongues blessing will include the link to I've Got the Power. And what I expect is a however long dance party when you get it and when you hear it. The stream should go way up.
What if I need to hear it now?
Aaron's looking at me like, no, you don't. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. But the song is so powerful. The beat drops, the bass kicks in. It is defiant. It is wild. It is joyful. It's a declaration. And if you were ever somewhere, as I was, where that song was played, where you could really feel it, you knew it wasn't just about the sound. The song had a spirit. It was about reclaiming something that the world has tried to take away again and again. Agency, choice, power, and our voice. This Lenten season, Prone to Wonder, has made me think a lot about power. What is it? Who gets to have it? What does it look like when it's kind of hidden under silence? And what does it sound like when it finally speaks? So this time, a story that I have read a number of times, preached a number of times, been irritated by a number of times, I decided I wouldn't start with the rise. A lot of times Esther does pick up where we had to pick it up today. And just know I think about all of you because I really wanted to read Esther 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like, you got to know the whole story. But I decided to give you the abridged Pastor Shana version and not have poor John and Krista read all of Esther in its entirety. But it is so much. But I didn't want to just jump into for such a time as this. So much of when this text is preached, it's that part. If I perish, I perish. Esther ain't start there. Esther's story starts with Vashti. Because before there was an Esther, there was a woman who said no. Vashti was the queen who refused to perform her beauty at the whim of her husband and his drunk pals. Vashti, who defied the king's command to come and be looked at and, is it ogled or ogled? Ogled, thank you. Displayed like fine china at a dinner party. And let's be clear, she wasn't just asked to come, hey, babe, come join us as we eat. She was meant to be paraded in front of men on a 7-day bender. They wanted to consume her, not honor her. And Vashti said no. She used her power to refuse, and for that she was exiled, erased, and then replaced. That's how we get Esther into this story. Esther's rise doesn't begin with her greatness. It begins in someone else's punishment. It begins doing what patriarchy does, discarding one woman to elevate another, selecting based on beauty, not ability. I struggle with his text in all its forms, and I'm going to tell you why. The movies, the cartoons, we've seen them. One Night with the King. Oh, I cried and then was mad. Prince of Persia cried, then was mad. Like, all of these movies and cartoons, they show it a certain way, but there is a harsh underlying reality of this whole story. The selection process that brings Esther into the palace isn't a beauty pageant. It is grooming. It is state-sanctioned human trafficking. These young girls were brought into the harem of the king, given beauty treatments, prepped for their night. And after that night, even if they weren't selected, they could never return home again. It's chilling. And for many of us who read this story as children or heard it in Sunday school, it takes years before you realize that what you were reading was not this beautiful Hebrew story tale. It was a story of survival. Esther did not particularly sign up for this. She was taken. She was renamed. She was made into something that would fit the mold of the empire. And the hard truth, the thing that is difficult, and the thing that gave me pause as I was writing this, is that sometimes that road to power starts with the loss of choice. Sometimes before we can claim our voice, we lose it. Sometimes our power isn't this rush of clarity or this grand revelation. It's a slow, painful awakening to a truth that has long been silenced. But Esther survived. She adapted. She did what many of us do. She learned the language of the system. She blended in. She got comfy. Because once Esther becomes queen, the text kind of goes silent for a while. We don't necessarily hear her voice. She doesn't speak out. There's really nothing to protest. She's not really challenging the system that takes her in. It's almost as if she has just kind of sat down. Sitting down isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes we need to sit to rest, to catch our breath. But there's a difference between resting and disappearing and disengaging. There's a difference between surviving a system and aligning yourself with it. And I wonder if Esther in those quiet years got used to that comfort of the palace. Did she tell herself maybe things aren't that bad? That maybe her silence was safety? That maybe if she just stayed under the radar and did not protest too much, she could avoid the worst of it. But then she gets a letter. Haman's decree goes out. Genocide is in motion. Mordecai is weeping in sackcloth and ashes at the gate. And now Esther has a decision to make. She cannot stay silent. Or will she decide to speak? Can you imagine your best friend or your mentor showing up at your door, broken, afraid, and in sackcloth and ashes, unable to come into your home or pass the gate because he's grieving and only joy is allowed in the empire? Before we get to Esther's famous line, "If I perish, I perish," very bold, very bold. We have to talk about what it took for her to get there. Because for a while, Esther sat, and it wasn't enough just to stand. When asked to stand, she wouldn't. Because rising isn't the same as standing. Standing you can do on your own. Standing is instinct, but rising takes help. Rising takes someone to call you back to who you are. Rising requires community. Mordecai pushes Esther to rise. He doesn't plead, he doesn't beg, he does not flatter her. She's got enough of that. He reminds her, do not think that you will escape this just because you are in the palace. If you keep silent at such a time as this, deliverance will come from somewhere else, but you and your family will perish. He said, if not you, then somebody else, but girl, you gonna die. In other words, he said, your comfort will not protect you. Proximity to power does not exempt you from persecution. And the real question isn't whether you will survive. The real question is whether or not you will choose to be part of said deliverance. And it's here where Esther rises. It's here where she finds the strength to stand, to communicate. She sends word back, go, gather the people. Fast for me. I'll go to the king, And if I die, I die. It was a reluctant rise, but a rise nevertheless. She didn't just get up and say, okay, I got this, I'm going to go in on my own. No, she asked for prayer, for fasting, for solidarity. That is the difference. Esther does not rise as a solo hero. She rises with the strength of her people, with the prayers of community. Esther rises in resistance. She rises in power. I've got the power. Sometimes we hear that word or that phrase and we think dominance. We think strength. We think control. But I want to offer us a different lens to view that today. I want us to consider power as our presence, power as prayer, power as resistance, power as rest, power as saying no when the world is demanding your yes, power as rising even when you don't want to, and even when it was not your choice to sit down in the first place. During Lent, we're called into the wilderness, and the wilderness is not a palace. It's not comfort. It's not safety. It's the place where you're stripped down to your barest self, where your illusions of protection fall away, when you are asked to face what is real. And it's in the wilderness that we remember what power looks like. It's Jesus tempted and refusing to bow to empire. It's the people of God walking through the desert. It's Hagar in exile naming God. It's the black woman on the plantation humming the Negro spirituals. It's the trans youth that still goes to school despite the fact that he's persecuted and erased every day. It's Vashti who said no. It's Esther who chose. There's another song with the same title, a bit softer of a vibe. It's by Shana Harnett. And one of the lines says, I've got the power, even when I'm low. I still got the fire burning in my soul. That's the power I'm talking about today. The power to say no. The power to rise, the power to pray, the power to tell the truth about where you've come from and what it took to get you there. The power to name that survival does not require silence. The power to remember that though we're in the wilderness, we're not alone. Esther's story reminds us that power is not always obvious. It's not always glamorous. It doesn't always feel like a crown placed on our heads. Sometimes it's trembling hands and voice on a platform that you didn't ask to be on. Sometimes it looks like community pulling on one side and pushing on the other when you really want to retreat, but that's still power. And we've got it. So this Lent, as we wander and we reflect, as we sit in the discomfort of the empires and systems that don't love us, may we remember what Esther teaches us, that power can be reclaimed, that power does not have to look like that of the kings, that there is power in prayer, that power comes from your people, and that power can rise even from pain. And maybe, just maybe, the most faithful thing that we can do this season is to stop waiting to feel strong. And instead, trust the power that you already have and trust that it is enough, because I've got the power. You've got the power. And God, who has called us for such a time as this, has never doubted your ability to wield it. Amen.